Commander Ethan Voss had seen a lot of strange things during his time in the Galactic Coalition Navy, but the girl sitting in the medbay chair was something else entirely. She had the distinct features of a Zalari: smooth violet-hued skin, elongated pupils, and an elegant bone crest running from her forehead to the back of her skull. Zalari were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, known for their advanced genetics and strict bloodlines. And yet, something about her unsettled him. Dr. Hayashi's voice broke the silence. "The DNA scan's done. You're going to want to see this." Ethan turned his attention to the holoscreen displaying the genetic profile. His stomach twisted as he read the results. Match found. 50% human, 50% Zalari. His breath caught. That was impossible. Zalari and humans weren't even compatible. Or at least, that's what everyone had thought. The girl shifted nervously, clearly picking up on a shock. "What is it?" she asked, her voice a soft, melodic hum. Ethan finally met her gaze. "Who are your parents?" I don't know," she admitted. "I was raised in a Zalari enclave, but they always treated me like an outsider. I was told my mother died at birth, and my father was unaccounted for." She hesitated before asking, "Why? What does the scan say?" Ethan clenched his jaw. His mind reeled. The only way this could be possible was if... Dr. Hayashi glanced at him warily, clearly already understanding the implications. Ethan took a breath, steeling himself. "Because," he said carefully, "there's a 99.9% match between your human DNA and mine." The girl froze. A long silence stretched between them before she finally whispered, "You're my father?" Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears. He had no recollection of any relationship with his Zalari, no memories of a lost love, no child left behind. But the data didn't lie. Before he could respond, alarms blared through the medbay. Incoming hostile vessels detected. Zalari warships inbound. The girl's violet eyes widened. "They found me." Ethan stared at her, realization dawning. If the Zalari knew she existed, if they were hunting her down, then this was bigger than just a lost family connection. This was something that could shake the balance of the entire galaxy. He grabbed her wrist. "No time to explain. We need to get to the bridge. Now." As the ship rocked under the first wave of enemy fire, Ethan knew one thing for certain. Whatever had happened in the past, whatever the truth was, he wasn't about to lose his daughter now. Chapter 1: The Encounter. The docking bay was bustling with traders, mechanics, and travelers, all moving with the chaotic rhythm of a spaceport that never truly slept. Lieutenant Ethan Cole stepped off the transport ship, his boots hitting the metal floor with a solid thunk. He adjusted his uniform and took a deep breath. This was just another stop in his patrol route, another routine inspection, until he saw her. She stood near a vendor's stall, her silver-white hair cascading over her shoulders like liquid moonlight. Her skin had a faint violet hue, and her eyes, deep, iridescent pools of emerald, caught the station's artificial lighting and reflected it back like twin stars. Ethan had seen plenty of alien species in his time, but something about her made his heart skip a beat. She was staring at him. Ethan swallowed hard and turned his attention to his datapad, forcing himself to focus on the task at hand. The station had reported a series of illegal tech trades, and he was here to investigate. Still, his eyes betrayed him, flickering back to the mysterious woman. Something about her felt familiar. Before he could question why, the vendor she had been speaking to suddenly bolted, shoving past the crowd with his stolen energy core clutched in his hands. "Damn it," Ethan muttered, launching into pursuit. The chase wove through the market, past vendors shouting protests and startled travelers dodging out of the way. The thief was fast, but Ethan was faster. He closed the distance, preparing to tackle the man, when a blur of silver and violet intercepted his path. The alien woman. She moved with inhuman speed, her slender fingers latching onto the thief's wrist. There was a brief struggle, a flicker of energy crackling between them, and then the thief collapsed, unconscious. Ethan skidded to a halt. "What the hell?" She turned to face him, her gaze steady. "You're welcome." Her voice was melodic but carried a hint of something he couldn't place. Before he could respond, station security arrived, taking the unconscious thief into custody. Ethan barely registered their presence. His focus was solely on her. "Who are you?" he asked, breathless. She tilted her head. "That's a complicated question." Chapter 2. The DNA Scan. Ethan watched as the alien woman vanished into the crowd, her form slipping between people with practiced ease. He wasn't about to let her go so easily. Something about her unnerved him, intrigued him, and he needed answers. He tapped his comm, Cole, to security. "I need a full station scan on a violet-skinned female, silver-white hair, approximately 5'8". She may have connections to the black market." "Copy that, Lieutenant." Ethan made his way back to the security office, a small sterile room filled with holographic displays and data terminals. His second-in-command, Officer Ramos, was already pulling up the station scans. "You got lucky, Cole," Ramos said, turning the display toward him. "She stopped at a med station about 5 minutes ago." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Routine health check, it seems. Standard scan, but here's where it gets weird." Ramos highlighted a section of the report. "Her DNA isn't in any database. Not human, not any known alien species. The system flagged it as a partial match to..." Ramos hesitated. "To what?" Ethan pressed, a strange sense of unease settling in his chest. "To you?" Ethan froze. "That's impossible." Ramos shook his head. "The genetic markers suggest a close familial relation. We're talking parent-child level of match." Ethan's heart pounded. That couldn't be right. He didn't have a child, let alone an alien one. He had never even... A memory surfaced. A mission 10 years ago. A diplomatic assignment gone wrong. A brief connection with an alien woman on a distant world, a night he had long buried in the recesses of his mind. "Find her," Ethan ordered, his voice hoarse. Because if the scan was right, then the mysterious alien girl wasn't just some stranger. She was his daughter. Chapter 3. The Hidden Bond. Nathan sat in the sterile white chamber, his hands gripping the edge of the metal examination table. The DNA results flickered on the screen before him, lines of genetic code scrolling past too fast for his untrained eye to decipher. But the words at the bottom were clear enough. 99.9% genetic match. He turned to Dr. Vasquez, whose sharp eyes studied the readout with a mix of fascination and unease. "This has to be a mistake," Nathan muttered. She's not even human. She's an alien." Dr. Vasquez exhaled, leaning forward. "Biologically, she has traits unlike anything in our database, but her DNA? It's almost entirely identical to yours." "This is beyond unprecedented, Nathan." Nathan's head spun. He barely knew the girl. She had crash-landed on the outskirts of Callisto Station barely a week ago. The first time he saw her, she had been huddled in the wreckage of her escape pod, her pale lavender skin covered in cuts, eyes glowing faintly under the dim emergency lights. She had looked at him like she recognized him. And now this. So what does this mean? That she's some kind of long-lost relative? That our ancestors got really weird? His voice carried forced sarcasm, a thin veil over his growing panic. Vasquez tapped the screen. "There's something else. The markers in her genome, they aren't just human. They're modified. And not by natural evolution. Something, engineered this match." Nathan stared at the readout, his pulse pounding in his ears. Why would someone do that? Before Vasquez could answer, the door to the med bay hissed open. The girl, Zaira, as she called herself, stood in the doorway, her violet eyes flickering with unreadable emotion. "Because you and I were meant to meet," she said softly. Chapter 4. The Awakening. The room tensed with silence. Nathan stared at Zaira, struggling to process her words. She took a cautious step forward, the glow of her skin subtly intensifying in the dim light. "Meant to meet," he echoed. "What the hell does that mean?" Dr. Vasquez folded her arms. "Zaira, you knew about this before we ran the test, didn't you?" Zaira hesitated, then nodded. "I suspected. I didn't know for sure, but..." She closed her eyes briefly, as if searching for the right words. "I have memories that aren't mine. And they're of you." Nathan swallowed hard. "That's impossible." We've never met before. Not in this life. Zyra's gaze locked onto his. But our connection runs deeper than time. Your DNA, it was chosen. Crafted. You were meant to find me. To awaken. A cold dread crawled up Nathan's spine. Awaken? From what? Zyra took a breath, her expression one of deep sorrow and urgency. From who you think you are. From the life you believe is yours. Dr. Vasquez's skeptical frown deepened. That sounds like some serious destiny nonsense, and I don't believe in that. You need to give us real answers, Zyra. Zyra nodded. I will. But not here. Not now. She turned to Nathan. You have to come with me. If you stay, they will find you. And when they do, everything you know will be erased. Nathan clenched his fists. Who's they? The ones who created you, Zyra whispered. The ones who created us both. As the words hung in the air, the station's alarms blared, red lights flashing in urgent pulses. A voice crackled over the intercom, unidentified vessels approaching fast. All personnel prepare for lockdown. Zyra grabbed Nathan's wrist. It's already started. If we don't leave now, we won't get another chance. Nathan glanced at Dr. Vasquez, who was already pulling up security footage. The display showed 3 sleek, black ships descending toward the station, ships that bore no insignia, no markings. They weren't from any known faction. This was personal. You have 5 seconds to decide, Zyra pressed. Stay, and you'll never know the truth. Come with me, and I'll show you everything. Nathan's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to pretend none of this was happening. But he had seen his own DNA results. He was already part of whatever this was. With a deep breath, he gripped Zyra's hand. Let's go. And then the station shook as the invasion began. Chapter 5. The Bloodline Unveiled. The air inside the research facility was thick with tension. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, casting a clinical glow on the white walls. Ethan's fingers tightened around the edge of the cold metal table as he stared at the holographic display. The DNA results spun in the air before him, neon blue strands twisting into familiar, yet impossible patterns.
His throat was dry.
This can't be right, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Across from him, Dr. Lien Rother stood with her arms crossed, her face unreadable. I triple-checked the results, Ethan. Your DNA and hers. There's a 99.8% match in parental lineage. Ethan's gaze flickered to the girl sitting at the far end of the room. Her emerald eyes, so unnatural yet strangely familiar, held his own with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. Her name, or at least the name she had given them, was Lyra. That means she's your daughter, Dr. Rother confirmed. The weight of those words crashed over him like a tidal wave. Impossible. He had never even seen an alien before today, let alone been with one. And yet, the evidence was irrefutable. Lyra cocked her head slightly, observing his reaction with curiosity. You seem troubled. Troubled. Ethan ran a hand through his short brown hair. I'm barely holding it together. How is this even possible? I don't remember. Because you weren't supposed to, Lyra interrupted, her voice smooth, carrying an almost musical quality. But now that the truth is out, it's only fair you remember. Before Ethan could respond, the lights dimmed, and a soft hum filled the air. A hidden projector in the ceiling activated, casting an image into the empty space between them. A fragmented recording flickered into existence, distorted by age and interference. A younger Ethan stood on an alien landscape, his face lined with exhaustion but his eyes burning with determination. Beside him stood a woman, tall, with the same deep green eyes as Lyra. She touched his arm gently. The recording crackled, and her voice came through, ghostly and faint. You won't remember this, but you will find her. You must. The survival of both our peoples depends on it. Ethan took a step back, his pulse pounding in his ears. What the hell is this? Lyra's expression softened. This is the past you forgot. The past that was taken from you. Chapter 6. The Forgotten Pact. Ethan barely heard the scientists scrambling behind him as the room filled with rapid beeping and data streams scrolling across the monitors. His mind was spinning. "Someone tell me what's going on," he demanded, his voice hoarse. "Who took my memories? And why?" Dr. Rother hesitated, then sighed. "There was a classified mission over a decade ago. You were assigned to an uncharted sector beyond the Orion Veil. The official reports say the mission ended in failure. But now," she gestured at Lyra, "we have reason to believe that was a lie." Ethan struggled to process her words. "A lie? Are you telling me I was sent on a mission and what? Someone wiped my memories afterward?" "That is correct," Lyra confirmed. "But not just anyone. It was agreed upon by both humans and my people. The council feared what you and my mother had done could destabilize everything. So they erased your involvement." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "Your mother?" The image flickered again, showing the woman from before. This time, her voice was clearer. "Ethan, my love, if you are seeing this, then they have failed to keep us apart. Our daughter, she is the key. The war will come, and she must stand between the stars. Protect her. Protect the future." The projection ended. Silence engulfed the room. Ethan exhaled sharply. "A war? What war?" He turned to Lyra. "Who exactly are you?" "I am the bridge between two civilizations," Lyra said. "And unless we act soon, both will be destroyed." The door to the lab burst open before Ethan could respond. A uniformed officer strode in, his face grim. "We have incoming. Unidentified ships just breached the outer defense perimeter. They're looking for her." Ethan's gut twisted. "Then we better make sure they don't find her." He didn't know what the full truth was yet, but one thing was clear: his past was catching up to him, and time was running out. Chapter 7. The Echo of Forgotten Blood. Ethan gritted his teeth as the ship's alarms blared. The Andarans had found them. The sleek, silver-hulled Andaran cruiser loomed on the view screen, its gravity well cannons charging with ominous pulses of blue light. Next to him, Lyra's elongated pupils narrowed, her bioluminescent veins dimming as her body tensed. "They won't fire immediately," Lyra said, voice tight. "They want to board us." Ethan's hands moved instinctively across the control panel. "Not happening." He jerked the ship into an erratic dive, skimming the magnetic storms of the nearby gas giant. Plasma fire from the Andaran vessel sliced through space, where they had just been. The ship trembled violently as the artificial gravity struggled to compensate for the high-G maneuvers. The cargo bay hatch groaned. A red warning light flashed. "We're being boarded." Lyra's voice held a note of dread. Ethan pulled his sidearm. "They don't get to take you." Lyra hesitated for just a moment before nodding. "Then let's make them regret coming." The first Andaran burst through the breach, clad in advanced kinetic armor. Ethan's pistol barked, sending high-velocity plasma slugs into the intruder's chest plate. Lyra moved like liquid shadow, striking with inhuman speed, her claws slicing through armor seals. More poured in. The fight became a blur. The ship trembled under their feet. Then, as suddenly as it started, the boarding lights flickered off. "We have a bigger problem," Lyra whispered. "They weren't trying to take me. They wanted something else." Ethan followed her gaze to the console. A data extraction protocol had been initiated. The Andarans had stolen something from their ship's archives. Something linked to Lyra's past. Chapter 8. Bloodlines and Betrayal. Ethan's fingers flew over the interface, trying to trace what data had been taken. The screen flickered, revealing fragmented genetic sequences, Lyra's DNA profile. "What the hell do they want with your genome?" he muttered. Lyra's expression darkened. "They already knew I wasn't just some random Andaran hybrid. They're looking for proof." "Proof of what?" Her hesitation was brief, but in that moment, Ethan understood. "Your bloodline," he said. "They think you're someone important." A tremor ran through her frame. "Not important. Dangerous." Ethan exhaled sharply. "Explain."
Now.
She turned away, staring at the Andaran cruiser retreating into the void. "My mother was not just any Andaran. She was part of the Prime genetic line, a direct descendant of the first Andarans to modify their genome. They were supposed to be extinct." Ethan's gut twisted. But you're not extinct. No, Lyra said softly. I was hidden. My DNA is a relic of their old power, the key to something buried in Andoran history. Something the ruling houses have been hunting for centuries. A calm alert interrupted them. Ethan's stomach dropped as an encrypted transmission appeared on the screen. The sender's ID was unknown, but the message was chillingly clear. We know who she is. Bring her in, or we take everything. Ethan clenched his fists. He had been a soldier, a scavenger, a loner. But now, Lyra's fate was tied to his. And if the Andarans thought they could take her without a fight, they were about to learn what it meant to challenge humanity's resolve. Let them come, Ethan growled. We'll show them what humans do when backed into a corner. Lyra's lips curled into a fierce smile. Together, then, the war for the past had begun. Chapter 9. The Revelation. The sterile hum of the medbay filled the silence as Aaron stared at the holographic DNA sequence floating above the console. His mind struggled to process what the scan had revealed. This can't be right, he muttered. Across from him, Liara, the alien girl who had crash-landed on Epsilon V, watched with wide, luminescent eyes. What does it say? Dr. Jansen, the station's chief medical officer, cleared his throat. Aaron, your DNA and Liara's share significant markers. More than just a coincidence. This suggests a direct familial link. Aaron's breath hitched. You mean she's a sibling? A close relative at the very least, Jansen confirmed. Liara gasped, her fingers gripping the edge of the console. That's not possible. I was born on Zalaria Prime. My parents may not be your biological ones, Jansen interjected gently. The room swayed around Aaron. He had spent years believing he was just another human in the vast galactic sprawl.
But now?
Now, he had an alien sister? This has to be a mistake. His voice was barely above a whisper. But the scanner didn't make mistakes. Liara's expression hardened with determination. Then we find out the truth. Together. Chapter 10. Fractured Truths. The search for answers took them deep into the station's archives, sifting through classified adoption records and interstellar genetic databases. Look at this. Liara pointed to a declassified document marked Project Nexus. There's a whole section on hybrid experiments. Human Zalarian genetic engineering. Aaron's stomach twisted. Are you saying we were designed? Liara hesitated, then nodded. Maybe. Or separated at birth. We need more data. Jansen returned with a grim look. I did more analysis on the genetic drift patterns. Aaron, your DNA structure contains markers indicative of Zalarian modification. It means I was never fully human, Aaron finished for him, his voice heavy with realization. The weight of it all crashed down on him. His childhood, his memories, they suddenly felt distant, like echoes of a life that never truly belonged to him. Liara placed a hand on his shoulder. Whatever we are, we're in this together. Before Aaron could respond, the station's alert system blared to life. Unauthorized vessel detected. Approaching at high velocity. Aaron and Liara exchanged a glance. If someone had gone to great lengths to keep their origins secret, then the ones who knew the full story wouldn't let them uncover it so easily. We need to move. Now, Aaron said. Liara nodded. Time to see just how much of our past is hunting us. As the station trembled from an approaching force, Aaron felt the pieces of his identity shift. He wasn't sure who he was anymore, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't run from the truth. No matter what it cost. Chapter 11. The Truth in the Blood. The sterile hum of the medical scanner faded into an eerie silence. Jason stared at the holographic display, his fingers frozen over the console. The DNA scan results blinked in golden letters before him, but his mind refused to process what they meant. This can't be right, he murmured. Across from him, the alien girl, Saris, tilted her head, her bioluminescent eyes scanning his face for a clue to his distress. Her violet skin shimmered faintly under the cool, white glow of the medbay. What does it say? She asked, her voice a whisper of uncertainty. Jason swallowed, his throat dry. We share genetic markers, far too many, for coincidence. Our DNA isn't just similar. It's connected. You're... He hesitated. He couldn't say it. He couldn't accept it. Sarah's lips parted slightly, her expression unreadable. I am what, Jason? Your family, he finally said. In some way I don't understand yet. You're related to me? A shiver passed through Saris, her bioluminescence pulsing erratically. Her gaze darted to the scanner, then back to Jason. That's not possible. I am Zalari. You are human. Our species have never. Yet the scan doesn't lie, Jason interjected, pressing his fingers to his temples. Someone somewhere engineered this. And if I had to bet, I'd say the Dominion had a hand in it. Sarah's pulse quickened. The Dominions? Jason nodded grimly. They've been running experiments crossing species, manipulating evolution.
But why?
And why us? Saris took a step closer. Then we find the answer. Together. Jason exhaled and met her gaze.
Yeah.
Together. Chapter 12. In the belly of the beast. The stealth ship Erebus slipped through the darkness of the Dominion's outermost research facility, cloaked against its security systems. Jason sat rigid in the cockpit, his mind still reeling from the revelation. Sarah sat beside him, fingers tapping nervously against the panel. We're in, the AI chimed. No detection.
Yet.
Jason nodded. We go in silent, extract the files, and get the hell out. Sarah's expression was unreadable as she tightened the grip on her pulse rifle. And if we find something worse? Jason's jaw tightened. Then we burn it to the ground. Minutes later, they were deep in the facility, navigating sterile hallways lined with containment units. Each chamber held something unnatural. Hybrids. Genetic abominations. Failed experiments. Sarah stopped abruptly at one of the tanks, her breath catching in her throat. Inside floated a creature, half Solari, half human. Her knees nearly buckled. Jason, they've done this before. We're not the first. Jason clenched his fists. Then we damn sure make sure we're the last. Suddenly, alarms blared. The facility had detected them. Move. Jason shouted, yanking Saris forward. Guards poured into the corridor, weapons raised. Sarah's heart pounded as she raised her rifle. Hope you're good at running. Jason smirked grimly. Only when I'm running toward the fight. The battle erupted, and with it, the fight for the truth and their survival began.